Hello, everyone, and welcome to the HP Podcast, your weekly show about video games from the three most handsome boys you know. I'm Ben, and with me here today is an even more handsome boy than normal, I would say. Brandon, you're looking trimmed up there, buddy.
Yes, buddy. So I made the switch recently, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize to interrupt the introduction, but I made the switch recently.
It was pitched to you, therefore it is the introduction.
It's your turn to talk, sir.
I'm catching. Dude, I went to sports clips for a long time. And
Was it the
they-
spandex that got you in there?
it gets you in the door. It's
Yeah.
it's certainly not the sports. Maybe for a lot of guys, but I'm above
Sure.
that. I'm above the sports.
Yeah.
I'm floating way above the sports.
Sure.
But yeah, boys, I made the switch. I went to an actual barber shop, and ooh wee. I don't feel handsome very often, but my man hooked me up. He got a 50% tip, as he should. And he's gonna get a 15% tip every single time I go back there. It's
Yeah.
just I got the same guy. I got the routine down. You get a haircut, you get a beard trim. He straight razor shaves the cheeks and the back of the neck. It's a lovely experience, truly. And the atmosphere in the place, wonderful.
Yeah.
Truly wonderful. It cannot be beat. Gentlemen, have either one of you had an actual barbershop experience? Because this is honestly, I mean, this is the second time I've went to this guy. This is the second time I've been at a barbershop ever. Any experience, boys?
Many, but specifically, also with the one you're talking about.
It's so
I
good.
started going there like a month after they opened originally, and I remember being like pretty impressed. It was another barbershop before that, but it was like an older crowd that was there. And I remember telling friends, I was like, you gotta go. It's the best barbershop in town. And then people
really
are like, I don't know. I like going to Great Clips. I'm like, why don't you just go to the Walmart haircutting place? Like,
Seriously,
I don't know.
people do that.
Yeah. Dave, who trims your... I don't go anywhere anymore because I just buzz my own head and trim my beard very sparingly. So if I were going somewhere, that'd be where I'd go.
Yeah, I've been to like a decent barber, but as you can probably tell by looking at me, I do not like going to the barber. And I don't mind like sitting in the chair and the act of getting my hair cut and stuff, but I just never know what to tell them. And then when I figure out something to tell them, I'm never quite satisfied with how I look. And I don't think it's the barber's fault. I think it's just my own indecision. So
Sure.
yeah, I kind of just settle for the cheap haircut and I'll go to a Sport Clips or a Great Clips or whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing is I also feel kind of like self-conscious about going to actual barbers where like people are in like every 2 weeks to like line up a fade, and here I am walking in with my fucking mop. And yeah, so I don't know. I know what you mean, but I also I don't know. I have a hard time paying for like, $50 for a haircut when I could
Oh,
get
no.
it for like 20.
No.
No.
This
maybe.
place we're talking about. Brandon,
Dude.
what did your hair and shave cost?
So for a beard trim, not a shave, I'd assume a shave might even be cheaper than a beard trim because it takes less time. But I think it was 30 for a beard trim and a haircut. It took an hour. I gave them a $15 tip, so it was $45 out the door with tip. Not too bad.
Yeah.
Not too bad at all. And Dave, to kind of play off what you said, I agree. I have no idea. They sit me down and they're like, "All right, do you want a 1? Do you want a 2? Do you want a balloon animal?" I'm like, "What the fuck are you saying?" like just cut the damn hair. And I know it's my responsibility because it's my body, but Sports Clips trained me to have the bar be so low that no matter what anybody does to my hair, they fucked my shit up so many times, and I kept going back that I am through the roof. And I don't want to take anything away from this place because it is legitimately above and beyond, but just come in with no expectations and then you'll be pleasantly surprised. That's like I keep telling everyone I'm turning 30 in a couple weeks. So this is my half life. I'm going to die in 30 more years. And then if I make it past it, I'll be pleasantly surprised. And if I die, well, then I could say I told you so.
Yeah. Well, you can't actually.
But how does a motherfucker wake up dead? Like how does somebody wake up dead?
Yeah, I feel that. I even after I stopped getting my haircut there, I would still occasionally go in for a beard trim. And now I just don't leave my house very often. So I don't even do that very often. So, but no, they're a great shop. If anybody's in the Butler area, I would recommend going to Jefferson Hairplane is the name of the barbershop. Good guys.
By appointment.
There's two of them. They may have a third that cycles in now.
3.
But there's 2 owners there, and they're probably like in our age range, maybe a little younger, and they know their stuff. And if you like nerdy stuff, it's all over the walls. If you want to hear some vinyls playing, it's the most hipstery thing I've ever enjoyed in my life, honestly.
There's like a retro video games playing in the background. Like legitimately, the atmosphere when I walked in, I was like, "Holy shit!" That I walk into one of my buddy's house, and then I sat down in the chair and I just felt at home. So,
but when I first started going there, it still looked like an old man barbershop, but it was the cuts that made me keep coming back. And then eventually the area transformed and it like grew around me, and that was nice.
Absolutely.
Dave, I know you're not a haircut guy, but you are normally a dry shirt guy. What's going on with your shirt?
I'm drinking a bubbly right now, and it kind of overflowed, and it's all over my shirt. So hopefully it'll dry, but if not, I'm just a sloppy shirt boy. So
I did not mean to give you guys contrasting intros. Brandon, you look great. Dave, you kind of look like a slob. Sorry, that's not what I meant to do, but that's what happened. I just felt like I see it.
He gets Davey Wavy Baby. I deserve a bone every once in a while.
Yeah, Brandon,
you get called the most glorious ginger.
Brandon, you are fine dining tonight,
Ben,
sir.
Thank you. I'm eating it up. Ben, listen. I don't ask people to call me that. It's just like a moniker. Like it's when you call someone doctor. Like that name was just given to me. I have the certificate.
That's not how being a doctor works.
I'm not one. I can't tell you.
And also you do ask people to call you that.
No.
It's your Twitch name. It's your Twitter name. It's probably somewhere else.
When I first hold on, I have to tell a story because it's very relevant to this. When I first met Brandon, I saw the moniker the Glorious Ginger, but almost at the same time, I also saw the photo that was synonymous with him for a long, long time. And that was the ancestral portrait that you had done of yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
And you told me where it was from, but I think once I saw the name and then that picture side by side, I was like, that's what I don't need any more explanation. If you have one of those made of yourself and it looks that good, then you are the most glorious. There's no debate. There's no debate.
And Ben, you say it's my name. It's kind of like, how the president of the United States has a Twitter?
Yeah.
He didn't Biden didn't make that Twitter.
No, but if he wanted to, he could have.
I know, but
if he didn't want to use it, he wouldn't have to.
I'm just telling you how it works.
Actually, he probably doesn't use it. It's probably like some aid. I doubt any of the presidents except for Trump have ever actually tweeted.
There is no way that man knows how to work a phone.
He actually says, "I have a Twitter," just like you did.
Yeah, he still calls it Twitter. So do I. But
right. Well, that's its name. So
yeah. Sorry,
elongated musket. That's his full name
for short.
If you want to hear more about elongated musket and all sorts of other stuff, support us over on patreon.com/handsomephantom. You could do so for as little as $1 a month. If you're an audio listener, you get the shows ad-free and a day early. If you're a video viewer, you can just help support us. Helps us keep the feeds going. It bought Dave a new mic recently, a new headset, a new light. So yeah, help us out, and we'll appreciate it very much. As little as $1 a month. If you're a paid member or a free member or just like to hang out, you can go over to handsomephantom.com/Discord. Join us in the Discord there. Chat amongst yourselves. Meet some new friends. Talk about weird stuff. Never really know what's going to happen. Fight Club?
Find
love. Oh, that's right. We don't talk about the other thing. But yes, find love. It is possible.
You never know, Ben.
Yeah.
All cards are on the table at this point.
Yeah. I'm not someone who's going to tell someone else who they are allowed to love in a Discord chat room.
That's what I'm saying.
It's anonymous. Be whoever you want.
It's all perfectly legal.
You guys want to talk about some video games?
Yeah.
I started out this show, putting the notes together this afternoon, and I was like, man, there's nothing to talk about. And then I came up with like 7 or 8 stories here. None of which, in fairness, I'm particularly like, this is like the industry thing this week, but they're all interesting things at least. So let's start out with a number 1, and I told you so. Deviation Games, a new AAA game developer founded by industry veterans Jason Blundell and Dave Anthony, is closing its doors. The studio, established in 2020 and known for its work on the Call of Duty Black Ops franchise, faced challenges despite signing a deal with PlayStation to develop an original AAA IP. After Blundell's departure in 2022 and a significant round of layoffs in May of 2023, the studio has announced its closure. Chief HR and Operations Officer Chris Stoll expressed gratitude to the team and invited the industry to a networking event for those seeking employment opportunities. Now, I say I told you so, I was only partially right, because last year, about this time, maybe a little later in the year, I said there will be another PlayStation studio that shuts down by the end of the year, and I was talking about Deviation Games. Of course, part of the way through the year, we found out they laid off a bunch of people who weren't closed. I think it was really just the skeleton crew, like, wrapping things up until now when they're officially shut down. The founder left, they fired everybody, like the studio was closed. But anyway, this is the one I was talking about. Brandon, it's a little weird. Deviation. Hey, look at us. We got this partnership with PlayStation. Jeff Keighley's like bringing them up on stage during, I think it was Summer Games Fest or one of those things that was still being done like live but not in person. They had made a big deal about it, and here's the game we're going to make, and everything else, and now they're just gone.
Yeah.
Lots of money,
Sure.
but no game.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this sort of thing happens all the time, just not with Sony usually.
Yeah.
I feel like this comes off of the coattail of the closure of the London studio and other layoffs that we've seen recently. I can't say for certain, and I don't know why this news didn't break with that news. But am I wrong in almost thinking here, guys, that this might be a part of that in some way, if not related very closely? It's possible it's performance related. I mean, obviously we haven't seen much. I mean, didn't we criticize when this all happened that there wasn't really much going on when they brought the studio on, and that was kind of weird. And now that they're going away and there's still not much going on, I don't know. It just seems like there clearly was a lot of problems that we didn't even know about. And you're right, Ben. You kind of said it. Like it was it Deviation Games all this year? Probably not. It's like who was even left at the office at this point? So, yeah, I don't know. I can't really be too sad. I mean, obviously, I'm sad for the people that were a part of the studio. But as far as like the forward movement of the medium, it's like nothing was happening anyway. So I don't know how to feel. Like,
Dave, my gut feeling is that so they're in a cooperative, they're in a partnership with PlayStation. They're not owned by PlayStation, but PlayStation's probably at least funding them in part. And they had a project, they presented it to PlayStation, like, hey, here's our progress report. And PlayStation was like, okay, you didn't meet the criteria, no more funding. And they were like, what do we do now?
die.
Yeah. That's my guess, Dave. What do you think that's a good guess?
Partially. I do really wonder what stake Sony had in this, and it probably wasn't nothing, because I think, Sony was willing to put their name up in lights alongside Deviation. And they were doing a lot of this back in 2021, and we all sort of mocked them that, you're announcing these big studio acquisitions, but you really have nothing else to tell us about them. So I mean, I think there was something there that Sony had at stake. But at the end of the day, when Deviation was first announced at Summer Game Fest 2021, Anthony and Blundell, they stood up on stage with Jeff Keighley, and I think Keighley tried to pry a little bit and get some information about what they were working on. And all they could talk about was like company culture and stuff like that, which is kind of ironic now that we're sitting here and the studio is shut down. But one of the things they did mention is they were using their financial security to take the time to build out their IP. And then last year, Blundell leaves the company. So what I think happened is that financial security left with Blundell. He was probably the money guy. He was the one who brought in all the resources. And with him gone, the studio just had no way to kind of survive. In any case, I think this is probably time for Sony to rethink their strategy of acquiring brand new squeaky clean studios just because of pedigree, because as we've probably learned, pedigree alone doesn't pay the bills. And A little game called Callisto Protocol came to mind recently, where it was from the maker or the producer of Dead Space. It's like, well, look what we got out of that. So, just bringing on people who have worked on other big games doesn't necessarily lead to success. So, I don't think we'll ever know what Sony had at stake here and what Sony ultimately lost. But I think when Blundell left the studio, that was kind of the nail in the coffin. And as you say, Ben, the last year was just a formality. So
Yeah.
it's too bad. But I mean, once again, these video game projects are funded with borrowed money, and borrowed money is financed with interest, and interest is kind of at an all-time, not an all-time high, but the highest it's been in a long time. So every week we're talking about a studio closure, and it all is ultimately coming back to that cost of borrowing. So
Yeah.
it's too bad, but I really hope this is the end of Sony showing us their name alongside a new studio and nothing else. Like, it's just, they look dumb right now, they really do. So yeah.
Radic in chat says, "Did you know anything about their canceled game?" No, I didn't know anything specific. I want to say it was a shooter, but I don't remember if I knew that or if that was announced. That was announced. Maybe it was just assumed. I didn't know that from any source or anything, and I don't even know if that's true. But I think that's what they were working on. And then they also asked, "Didn't Blundell join Sony a few months ago?" I remember seeing he just went somewhere, but I just looked and I don't see documentation of where it was, but he definitely went somewhere else. They did say it was a shooter. Alex says they said it was a shooter during the Keeley thing. That was always in my mind, but I don't know. I didn't know if that was true or not, or if that was just speculation. So, but anyway, that's official now. Deviation is shut down. That's the one I was talking about last year around this time. A couple people keep asking me frequently, monthly or so. Was it this studio? Was it that studio? But now, officially, it was this studio. Number 2, Multiversus, Warner Brothers' free-to-play crossover platform fighter, is set to relaunch on May 28th after undergoing a significant overhaul. The game, rebuilt in Unreal Engine 5, boasts improved visuals, lighting, and a revamped netcode for consistent online performance across platforms. Game director Tony Hoyne, I don't know how to say his name, I'm sorry, Hoon, revealed that every existing fighter has received new attacks and combat mechanics, with additional characters and stages, including ones inspired by the Powerpuff Girls, Townsville, and Dexter's Laboratory, teased for the future. There's a new PvE mode in the works, promising unique rewards and additional ways to play. It originally launched in an open beta last May. It featured characters from Warner Brothers IP like DC, Looney Tunes, and Game of Thrones, etc. The beta did receive positive feedback initially, but had a lot of dwindling engagement, infrequent updates, and communication issues. Now, I want to bring this up because, one, yeah, okay, there's a new game coming out officially, whatever. But the reason I wanted to bring this up is because all of the marketing and everything surrounding this game being released, being launched, is that, hey, we went into beta, we went away, we did a lot of work, and now we're coming back. But at the time when the game came out originally last year, no one said this game's going to go away, or this was just a beta and it's going to go away. It's going to disappear. People spent a lot of money, I don't know about a lot of money. People spent real money to pay for, cosmetics and characters in this game, and then it just disappeared. And they never announced that beforehand. And Brandon, I'm going to go to you again first because I know you played a good bit of Multiversus.
Yeah.
Does that worry you for the game actually releasing, or is that a really good thing that a beta, whether they announced that it was a beta or not, it actually went away and took some time?
I think that it's twofold. I think that it's bad the way they did it. But I think I understand why they did what they did. I think you really touched on something when you said the dwindling engagement rate. This game had reached highs that were probably astronomically higher than they could have ever imagined. Like, at one point, wasn't there millions of people that had downloaded it?
I think
So,
at the
like,
very beginning, yeah.
at the beginning, it skyrocketed. It was, I don't know if it came at the right time. Obviously there was some interest in the game. I enjoyed it when it lasted, but I don't like the way they did it. I wish they would have been more forward about it, but I think they were caught between a rock and a hard place in a sense that they reached levels to which they thought they never were going to achieve, and then quickly fell off like a lot of studios do with these live service games. And so the options were to continue to dwindle the player base to insanely low numbers as they were getting towards the end of before it getting taken down, or to kind of regroup in the hopes that you can kind of make a second push. So I'm not giving them a pass. Like, I don't like the way they did that. That's not what I'm saying. And I think that in some respects, I think they maybe even should offer refunds to everybody that originally played the game. I'd never caught wind of them doing that, but um, I'm hoping it's good. I really think that this is not going to hit as good the second time. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I don't know. Maybe what they added is really cool. Maybe the PvE is really cool. Maybe it looks insanely better. But I really think as gamers and how games are consumed now, when you put things out that are too similar, even if they have some iterative properties, they never hit as hard twice, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I'll be excited to check it out. Assuming it's still free to play. I definitely will at least try it, but I'm not thinking it's going to reach the heights that it was last time, even with the new additions, unless something really changes. And I thought the game was fun by all accounts. A lot of companies now have tried to capitalize off the whole Smash craze, and a lot have not done very well. Most have not done very well. This game actually felt pretty good. So if they can manage to continue to hone it, there might be something there. But I really personally don't think they're gonna catch the lightning twice. So
Yeah, Dave, I'm kind of with Brandon. I don't want to put a time frame on it, but it's like one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I give it a year. They went away, they put some time into it. They've got major characters, they've got funding, they probably got a lot of backlog ready to go for updates, but I see this, maybe it gets some huge numbers again, right, when it comes out, but I just don't see it there for the long haul. When there's not one on Xbox or PlayStation, but there's just better fighter games that are like a collaboration of a whole universe. But what do you think?
It's definitely tough to come back from a bad first impression. And to echo what Brandon said, and we said it several times on the show before, these games as a service titles generally operate on a very, very short lease. So to see WB be willing to give this game a second chance, it's nice to see. And I have to think that the leash was it is even shorter because we're dealing with pretty high value IP here, with all the different WB characters that are in this game. So as long as WB takes a very long and concerted look at the feedback that they got from the beta and the initial release and acts on those, and there was a lot of pretty big pieces that people were complaining about. There was server quality issues, there was balancing, seemed to be a focus on skins over characters that people weren't appreciative of. As long as they address those things, then I think they're on the right foot. People are already talking about this game coming back out. I think it's coming out at a good time in May, because June's starting to get a little crowded. I think there's going to be a Twitch audience for this game. So as long as they can meaningfully act on the feedback that they got from the initial release, then I think they have a shot here. We talk about Super Smash Bros. And its clones. I think there are a lot of people who haven't really experienced the fun of a Super Smash Bros. Game because it's been stranded on Nintendo hardware for its entire life. But that, coupled with the games as a service, with the PvE and a strong PvP community, that could be a hit. And then you throw in all of the valuable characters that they could throw into this game. This has potential. And I think WB sees that, and that's why they're giving this a second shot. So I'm not normally into these games, but I definitely want to give this a shot when it comes out, in a couple months. So yeah, I'm rooting for them here because I like to see when people take a second shot at this stuff.
And something that I think that also will be super crucial to their success. You mentioned Twitch. It did have a pretty strong Twitch standing for a while, and something that these fighting games have going for them that not other types of games can do this, but fighting games seem to thrive. I want them to lean into the community aspect of tournaments because I feel like when you get many people engaged, many different kinds of audiences, I think you get what I'm trying to say. Like, I hope they implement ways in which you could easily do some tourneys because I feel like whether it's fan tourneys or whether they spend a measly 10,000 of their microtransaction dollars on a prize pool, I think that's something that breathes huge life into these games is the competitive nature of them. And if the netcode has been improved enough to be competitive, then I think they really should lean into that.
Chat says they are smart to focus on Cartoon Network characters for their marketing and not boomer shit like Beetlejuice and the Wicked Witch of the West.
Dude.
And in fairness, I agree with that. I think that the Cartoon Network characters, they're still relevant to us, maybe not us three specifically, but our age group. And they've got a lot of appeal for younger generations as well, where there are characters like Beetlejuice, and even Scooby-Doo to some extent that were, Shaggy in the original release was a really overpowered character, if I remember correctly. But like, who actually goes out and they're like, I'm a big Scooby-Doo fan?
Dude.
There are people, but it's these more niche, nostalgic IP that I think are really gonna get them.
And I know it's Radix, so I'm not gonna like pay the troll toll, but legitimately the fact that Beetlejuice, which came out in 1988, the late 80s, and you're comparing that to The Wizard of Oz, which came out in 1939. Bro, you are showing your age, and I'm not saying that in an endearing way, buddy.
Radix, nothing happened before 2005.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that if they capitalize on that nostalgia stuff, and then they also can tie in new stuff, like, there's what's that show called? I can't remember it. The Game of Thrones prequel. They've got
House
the
of
rights to
Dragons.
that. If they can figure out a way to integrate that with it, if they, when Batman, the next Batman movie releases, although that just got pushed back to next year, or 2 years from now. But you know what I mean? Like, if they can integrate their stuff that's in the theater right now, along with nostalgic stuff, I think that's where the key is. But
Aquaman.
Yeah, put Aquaman in there first thing. That'll be, if you want the game to die in even quicker.
It's such a shame what they did to my boy. It's such a shame.
Your boy's Aquaman?
Dude, in Injustice, he was my guy.
Oh yeah.
We don't get a good Aquaman, after these movies kind of just shit on his legacy. We don't
True.
get a good fighter with Aquaman. I want
Very
it to
true.
happen. Make it happen, WB. Especially after the flop. We're gonna get kill the Justice League characters, and imagine.
Number 3, to continue the Ben's victory lap tour. Number 3, Microsoft's decision to bring some Xbox console exclusive games to PlayStation and Nintendo Switch has stirred both resistance and skepticism. This move challenges the notion of exclusivity, with titles like Grounded, Pentiment, Hi-Fi Rush, and Sea of Thieves making the leap to other platforms. Sea of Thieves, a popular multiplayer pirate adventure, has already seen success in PlayStation pre-orders. While Microsoft initially plans to limit this expansion to 4 games, the success of this experiment could lead to more titles following suit, and I'm going to bet you that it will. Boys, Sea of Thieves, #1 most popular pre-ordered game on PlayStation. Now, in fairness, there's not a lot of other stuff on there to pre-order right now. But still, to see a first-party Microsoft game that's 6 years old and full of bugs come out on PlayStation and be the #1 pre-order, pretty impressive. Dave, do you think it's just a known quantity? Do you think it's the idea of we finally get a Microsoft game, or is it just Sea of Thieves players wanting to buy it on PlayStation 2? PlayStation 5 also.
You're asking, like, what's the next step? Like, what's going to happen from here?
Yeah, that, but also, like, why? Why is it, why is it popping off right now?
No, it's the approach is a cautious one for sure, and it kind of intrigues me as to why Microsoft is starting with these 4 games and not starting with like something bigger, because I feel like Microsoft is in a lot more desperate position right now than when Sony was, when Sony started putting its exclusives on PC. And Sony took a much more aggressive approach when it did that. Like, it didn't start with some, tiddly little old first party game. It was like Horizon, Days Gone, God of War. And we're seeing Microsoft put, not the heaviest hitters on here. So I'm kind of curious just why they're going about it this way, but it's good to see that people are still interested in Sea of Thieves this many years out. It's a social game, and there's a lot of people playing online on PlayStation, so I think it's going to be a success. As for the people getting upset about it, once again, it's the PlayStation exclusives on PC all over again. The only people who can justify being angry about this are the Xbox, who just like need to defend having to have an Xbox console. But at the end of the day, Microsoft's a big company, and they're going to take the road that makes them the most money at the end of the day. So they're in a spot where they need to be aggressive about this. So I don't think it's going to be long before we see Forza Horizon on PlayStation. And, you know, Microsoft has so many different franchises right now that could technically be exclusive, that it's going to probably branch out to PlayStation, because, you know, Sea of Thieves being this successful shows you that there are, you know, if you put, I'm sorry, I am drawing a complete blank about that fucking Bethesda game that came out in September. Starfield, Jesus Christ.
It's very forgettable, I know.
Starfield, like that, like if Sea of Thieves is making this much of a splash, pun intended, then like imagine what Starfield would be like. And Microsoft makes bank off that. So it's just a matter of time before we see the heavy hitters, in my opinion. But Hi-Fi Rush on PlayStation, if you haven't played it yet, big game. Dave's 2023 game of the year. So it's coming, boys. It's coming.
It's funny because I agree. People keep like, oh, these 4 games that aren't very big, and I think you said like Piddly or something like that. And I understand the sentiment, of course. You know, Pentiment, not a very big seller, although from all accounts it's a great game. Hi-Fi Rush, I don't think sold that many copies, but a lot of people played it on Game Pass. But Sea of Thieves is one of their biggest money makers right now, especially being a live service game that's also a paid game, and the player base spends money. So it's an overlooked title, but it's one that's bringing them money already, and I'm sure it's only going to do more. But they did just also announce that they recently added a PvE only mode that you can go in without any other players. And they recently announced that if you're playing that with like just solo, completely solo, not with like another crewmate, but if you're just playing solo in a PvE server, then you don't have to have the online component, which I think was timed appropriately, not only for Xbox, but also like you're bringing it to another platform. We don't want any barriers to you playing this game if you want to. Right. Brandon, PS5 pre-orders, Sea of Thieves, going crazy, selling more right now than Rise of the Ronin, a PlayStation-backed exclusive.
Yeah. I think it's honestly just because gamers have bad taste.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No,
how long you been waiting to say that? You've just been sitting there while Dave's talking, like rocking back and forth.
Including me. But no, this is good. All jokes aside, you know, obviously Ben jokes more than anybody about Sea of Thieves because he loves it dearly. But this is a quality game, and you're not exaggerating in any way when you say that it is legitimately a moneymaker for them. So even if it's not Halo, even if it's not Forza, this makes a lot of sense. Of all of the games that are coming to PlayStation, this one specifically for them right now is a cash cow. Whether you like the game or not, it just does make sense. This will definitely open the floodgates to more. It literally has to. Microsoft will see the money pouring in and will say, we want more, because that's the entire point of all this, and that's what nobody wants to acknowledge, is that this is good for the company that you love, even if you don't like the decision. So if you like Microsoft a lot, you should be happy, which is really just not something that anybody seems to understand that is mad about it. But yeah, I'm glad to see it. I'm glad for the player base of Sea of Thieves. I think the base that they've built is so much larger than when it launched, and it's just gonna continue to propel this game into the future. I'd love to see a reworking of the engine at some point if the game continues to be successful, and I think its best chance of that happening is by releasing it on every console. So this is good.
Not every console. If they put it on Switch, the servers will collapse.
I think the water alone, even if it was like an empty map with just the water, I think the Switch, you could like flip it over and cook bacon on it.
Yeah.
But
they you know why they don't release it on Switch is because they don't have the server capacity to kind of handle.
That's possible.
Billions of Switch players that would be playing that game. So.
That's right.
It is really interesting because Dave, you asked like why these games are not more heavy hitters. I think it comes down to like first of all, like Pentiment, Grounded, those were definitely not huge sellers. Microsoft may have been very happy with their performance, and especially in Game Pass, but I don't think they sold a lot of copies. Hi-Fi Rush, we haven't gotten numbers on, but I think they announced like, oh, they had 3 million players or something 6 months in, and with it being on Game Pass, that's also not a huge amount. And then you've got Sea of Thieves, which is a live service title that they're also charging $40 for. So when you figure like, okay, we know Sea of Thieves is going to make money, and we didn't quite make as much money as we could have with these other games, so why not put them on there? I think that's the first thing is when it's probably some of the executives are like, we're not putting Master Chief on a PlayStation yet until you've proven that it's worth it, kind of thing.
Right.
And also there is the idea of like the most Xbox faithful. They've been on Xbox since Halo came out. They're going to stay on Xbox to play Halo. And you don't want to immediately alienate that base with that being like your first thing, or Starfield, which is your newest thing. And, I think that's probably the reasoning. That's all speculation on my part. I don't have numbers hard and fast for any of these things, but it seems like a good guess. As good a guess as I'll ever come up with, at least. Number 4, in the ongoing saga between Apple and Epic Games, the recent revocation and subsequent reinstatement of Epic's developer license by Apple has added another twist. Apple's move to ban Epic Games Sweden's developer license, seemingly in response to Epic's plans to launch a European iOS app store, prompted swift action from the European Commission, which opened an investigation into Apple's compliance with the Digital Markets Act. However, just as quickly as the investigation began, Apple reversed its decision and reinstated Epic's developer license, citing a commitment from Epic to adhere to Apple's DMA policies. The turn of events allows Epic to proceed with its plans for an alternative European iOS store, and even hints at the possibility of Fortnite returning to iOS in Europe. This is probably... I've not seen this reported as much as I would have expected. This is kind of a huge freaking deal. Because, first of all, Apple was like, nah, screw you, Epic. We're not letting you go on there. And then as soon as a governmental agency got a hold of it and they knew they were wrong, because basically the decision in Europe recently was you can't prohibit them, then they reversed it. But if Epic can get on there and put their own store on there, and then, of course, put Fortnite on there, which is where all their money really is, that just opens the floodgates for everybody else to open a store. Guess what? Google Play, welcome to iOS in Europe next year. Who knows? But I just think it's gigantic. And we don't talk about the mobile market a lot, but we have talked a lot about Epic and Apple. Actually, we do talk about the mobile market a lot, but we don't play mobile very much. But we talk a lot about Epic and Apple. And Brandon, I wanted to see what your thoughts were here. Is this going to are there just going to be a ton of stores in Europe on Apple? And what do we got to do to get that to happen in the US?
Makes sense for them only to do this in Europe. I know that that's what they're going to have to do legally.
Yeah.
But at what point will it just be like easier and save them money to not have to run separate things? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I agree with you. I think this could potentially open up the floodgates. And I love it, man. I love that Epic keeps prodding. I fucking love it. I love that they stuck it out so long that they're finally going to be winning. They're like, fine, you don't want us to be on your store? Fine. And they stuck it out and they stuck it out. And the people have spoken and the government has spoken. And now this is good. This is really good. And I think this is a win for everybody because it's a lose for Apple.
I was going to say it's a win for everybody except for Apple.
Yeah, exactly. So now this is good and they should be able to. It'd be a little weird seeing a bunch of different stores on my iPhone if that were the possibility. But I mean, what's the difference?
Yeah.
I'm not
Dave?
getting it from Apple. What's the
Right.
difference?
Right.
Yeah,
Dave, is Apple going to go bankrupt now?
Yes,
Tim
it
Apple.
just happened. Fuck you, Tim.
Tim
The cat's
Apple.
name.
Yeah.
I hope this doesn't kind of boil down this way. We've talked in the past about how having multiple storefronts on PC for gaming is really annoying. So I can just imagine how irritating it would be on my phone. So yeah, I hope that isn't the case. I hope that eventually Apple and Epic can play nice in the sandbox, but to this point, it looks like they can't. And in this standoff that we've had between Apple and Epic, it kind of feels like Apple's just blinked. Because I think Apple has realized that it needs Epic and it needs Fortnite, but Epic doesn't necessarily need Apple and iOS to be successful. And Apple has realized that. So I think this is, chalk this up as a win for Epic. I don't know if they'll go as far as creating their own app store, but at least they've shown that Apple kind of needs them, because Fortnite, there aren't many pieces of software that can kind of supersede Apple's empire and its popularity. But if there is one, I think it's Fortnite.
Yeah. Well, Dave, they have said, I mean, that's what Epic was working on, was their own store.
Yeah.
And then
I don't think that would
in
be,
Europe.
I don't think that would be a detriment to Fortnite, unfortunately. I'm just saying, as a consumer, that's not the sort of arrangement that I would prefer. So if that's the way it's going, it is what it is. But hey, Fortnite will be fine. Not sure about Apple though. Not sure about Apple.
Yeah. Agreed. It's going to be, if they start, if just, I don't know what the parameters are going to be. I'm sure there's some way that they can rule it out. But like, if Rovio, which is now owned by Sega, so if Sega decides we're going to put our own store on there, and now Angry Birds, one of the most popular, I mean, they're tied up with Apple Arcade and everything now too, but just pretend for a minute like they're not. We're going to put our own store on there, and now Angry Birds is going to be available without ever having to go through Apple. How many billions of dollars does Apple make just through the App Store?
And
Plenty.
how is Microsoft, now owners of King, how are they kind of standing on the sidelines and watching this all play out? And what are they thinking about what their opportunities might be with Candy Crush alone?
Right. Yeah. I imagine that at least in Europe, there's going to be the ability, like if you wanted to launch Candy Crush without having to go through any store. I don't know exactly how that works and what the parameters are, but like, can you just go on a website and download a game and pay the developer directly now instead of having to go through Apple's ecosystem? I don't know. I transparently haven't read up on it enough, but that'd be a huge blow, because that's the reason the whole Fortnite thing developed, is because they were like, hey, we want you to be able to buy our V-Bucks without having to give 30% to Apple. Apple said no, and then now this happened, and now not only do they all they wanted was for them to lower the percentage, and now instead of lowering the percentage and getting some of it, they have none of it. And I don't doubt that it will be long before we see that elsewhere besides just Europe, but just speculation on my part. I don't know anything about anything, so I'm just a guy, not a lawyer. Certainly not a European law lawyer. Number 5. Krafton has unveiled an extensive roadmap for PUBG, detailing upcoming features until 2024, including destructible environments, a shift to Unreal Engine 5, a skins market, and numerous collaborations. Here's the real part that I want to talk about. Despite these advancements, the battle against cheaters remains a top priority. In 2023 alone, a staggering 3.2 million cheaters were permanently banned from the game, showcasing the ongoing challenge. Krafton reassures players that anti-cheat systems are continuously improving, with investments in rigorous detection mechanics and advanced deep learning to combat cheaters effectively. That's a lot for a game that I didn't know was still being developed. I forgot PUBG existed, if I'm being real. PUBG was the biggest thing for a long time, and I know it's still big in the scheme of video games and what's popular, especially battle royales. It's fallen from grace, but it's still a juggernaut. But 3.2 million cheaters. Dave, why do people like to cheat? I don't understand. I've never understood.
I don't get it. I remember when I was a kid and I would unlock a cheat code, and it was fun at first.
Yeah.
But it quickly became not fun. I'm thinking about like IDKFA was one of the inputs for like Doom 2. I used to have them memorized.
Yeah.
And they all started with ID for like in software.
Right.
And it was like fun. Like, look, I can kind of clip through all the walls and get to the end, and none of the enemies are aggroing. And it was, but I feel like I was breaking the game. And like in a PvP competitive sort of environment like PUBG or COD or anything like that, like, what fun are you having? I think the issue is when it comes to things like Twitch, people will watch you if they think you're really, really good. And what's the shortcut to looking really, really good is cheating. So unfortunately, there's money involved in some of this. There's people who've been caught at competitions and stuff. So I think, when it comes down to potentially making money off of playing a video game, then that's where cheating can seem like an attractive idea for lazy people. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you're just playing a game, I don't understand why it's fun. And the worst thing is it ruins it for everybody else. A game like PUBG, I remember trying it out when it first came out and it was like the big hit. Fast forward to today, and this is one of the most intimidating games to me for two reasons. One, I know a game that has a player base this concentrated on PC is probably one of the sweatiest games out there, which isn't good for me because that means I have to play for a long time not having fun before I could maybe have some fun when I'm good enough at the game. The second reason why I'm intimidated is because I know there's cheaters out there, and I may never get to that point where it is fun. So I said the same thing as you, Ben. 3.2 million players banned in 1 year. If you're still having to ban that many players and you still have a substantial player base, then the cheating problem has gotten out of control. So
Yeah.
all credit to Crafton for continuing to invest in a solution for this, but is it beyond control? Will it ever be reined in? It doesn't look like it. Me personally, this is a reason for me not to try out the game, and that kind of outward view really hurts a game. So
Yeah.
it is what it is, I guess. PC gaming. It's great for many things, but it also isn't great for cheating when you're talking about PvP. So yeah.
Brandon, I think in a single player game like Dave was talking about, if you cheat, you're just screwing yourself. Which,
Right.
We've all opened up the console, typed in God mode, and run through the level, whatever. There's some cheats that make the game more fun. Legitimately, you can get out the bigger shotgun and have a blast. No pun intended. But when you play when you do that in a multiplayer game, yeah, Dave's right. There's some money wrapped up in it. But really, do you think the ultimate reason to cheat in a game like PUBG is just to troll other people? Really?
That's actually exactly what I was going to say. The fun, let's say in quotes, of cheating is no longer because the game is fun. It's fun because you're duping other people, which is really just like saying volumes about the people that get enjoyment out of this sort of thing. But
Right.
yeah, man, I guess this is good. I tend to agree with what Dave is saying. 3.2 million and counting is crazy because if there's 3.2 million, how many do you think there actually is? If
Mhm.
that's how many they caught, and how many have gotten made since then. So it's a never-ending battle. I understand that. Even the absolute giants in the industry like Call of Duty still severely struggle with this problem. But skin market,
I can't believe they didn't already have that.
is that a selling point now, or is that did they even have to announce that? Like, you could have not said anything, and I would have just assumed that it was going to be in your game. But
The game's almost a decade old.
that's
How
what
did
I'm
they not
saying.
have that already?
I think they have some sort of cosmetic purchasing, but I don't think that it's like a market, if I
Gotcha.
understand it correctly. But destructible environments, I instantly thought about the finals, which,
Sure.
funny enough, I pulled up the Steam charts. It has not kept players like I thought it
No, it
was going
hasn't.
to at all.
Honestly, I
They're
think it got too sweaty too fast.
Yeah, and they're about to drop a new season, or have dropped a new season. I just saw, but um,
Yeah.
I guess this is good. I'd be willing to jump back in. It was the first VR that I ever played. It certainly has a lot of admirable qualities about it that other shooters still don't have in them, in my opinion. And this is good. I just think that at some point, let's just put out PUBG 2, which it kind of sounds like this might be that without calling it that. So Unreal
Yeah.
Engine 5 is great. I hope it looks amazing. I'll check it out. But I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm closer to 30 now than 20. I just don't want to be aggravated all the time when I play it. So
Agreed. Number 6, Capcom has announced a significant increase in starting salaries for new graduate hires in Japan, raising it from 235,000 yen per month to 300,000 yen per month, beginning in the 2025 fiscal year. This change reflects the company's commitment to investing in human capital and attracting top talent. Additionally, current employees will receive a one-time special payment as a token of appreciation, and existing salaries will be raised by an average of more than 5% in fiscal year 2024. I wrote 5%. I swear I read 20%, but maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. This move follows previous salary increases and bonus system revisions aimed at enhancing corporate value and fostering trust with employees and stakeholders. Other Japanese publishers, including Nintendo and Sega, have also raised salaries in recent years, amid inflation concerns. Despite economic challenges, Capcom remains financially robust, with successful game launches like Street Fighter VI and Resident Evil 4 Remake contributing to its sustained growth, as well as the anticipation for upcoming titles like Dragon's Dogma 2 and Monster Hunter Wilds. Brandon, that's a big bump.
Yeah, man.
No matter what it is, they're raising the minimum starting salary for everybody, giving everybody who already works there a big raise. This is the second time in 3 years, I think, that Capcom's done that.
Dude, Capcom's doing it right. I'm just going to be honest with you. This is a breath of fresh air in a barren wasteland of shit that we've seen the video game industry in recently. And God bless them, because they've been winning and they've been spreading the wealth. And you tapped on something that's perfect that so many companies just cannot wrap their head around, is that there is lots of capital that you can acquire. You could acquire it in IP, you could acquire it in real estate and technology, but you could also acquire it by like what actually makes the games, which is people. You could treat them right, and then they make good games. Wild, crazy concept. But bless them, because we have a hit like Street Fighter. It's been a little bit, but Village did really, really well. And I'm assuming they're projecting that Dragon's Dogma, and if everything that I've heard about it is true, is going to do very, very well. So they're setting themselves up for they're setting themselves up for success in a way that is few and far between.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping, and I know in my gut, that this is going to be good for them. This is good news. I was really happy to see you put this in here because, yeah, like I said, it's just most of the time it's so fucking depressing reading this shit. And when I know that people that are going to be making Monster Hunter Wilds or even having any participation in it potentially are going to be treated better, that just makes me more excited to not only play the game, but it makes me know that the game will come out in a better state for it. And that's what's really most important here.
Dave, I think it was last year or year before we saw, in addition to Capcom doing this a couple years ago, I think, I can't say the name of the developer now, Bandai also gave like pretty substantial raises to everybody at the company, at least in Japan. I don't know that they did that all over the world, but should we glean any sort of hope for this after all the layoffs and stuff we've seen, or is this just specific to these great companies?
I don't know. Maybe this is just specific to these great companies, as you put it. Just to put it in perspective, 300,000 yen is roughly $2,000 US a month. That's for a starting graduate. And that's about a $450 USD per month increase from what it was previously. So,
and that goes a long way in Japan.
Yeah, and this is a lot more than an annual cost of living increase, which I don't even know if that's standard in Japan. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, we hear so often about like companies reporting record profits and then they get a shitty pizza party for their employees. And this is an example of what employers should do. Like if you're willing to gloat about that. Yeah, if you're willing to gloat about, how well you're doing, then treat your employers or your employees best, because if your employees are happy, then your customers are going to be happy at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Capcom is daddy and they can do no wrong. I mean, I thought back in my head, I was like, when's the last time they released a game that wasn't received well? And I'm thinking like Resident Evil 6. I don't know, I'm sure there was something else after that, but it just feels like just the Resident Evil franchise, like they have done so well with that franchise, the way they've kind of established this cadence of like remake and then a new game and then remake and a new game, and they've all been completely quality. They deserve the success they've seen. Radix kind of mentioned in the chat there that there was a time when Capcom was a hated company. They were in there with Ubisoft and EA and that kind of stuff, but look at them now. They can do no wrong, and it's just so refreshing, as Brandon would say, to see this kind of positive news. And Monster Hunter Wilds is going to sell like hotcakes. It's really Dragon's Dogma, I think, is a little bit niche. It's still going to do really, really well. By the way, the original game is on sale for $6 Canadian on PSN right now,
so it's free in the US.
If you're interested, now's a good time to check it out because it's super cheap. But how old is that game? And it's consistently sold well since it released. Like, it's just, they had Dark Arisen that came out, but I don't know. It's this is a company that just is just nothing but quality. So I'm happy to see that they're treating their employees well, and it looks like it's a prestigious company to work for. So good for them. This is nice.
That is $5.09 right now. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, $5.09 in the U.S. Is Dark Arisen? Is that the base game? No, that's not the base game.
Dark Arisen is the deluxe sort of.
That's the deluxe one.
with
Okay,
DLC
yeah.
or whatever.
Wow. Okay, so even better. There you go. Go get it. Let's see here real quick. We got Monster. Oh my gosh, that was not a Western Pennsylvania thing. That was just a tongue slip. Monster Hunter Wild Sweep in chat. RE3 remake having cut content from the original game, missing a whole section. Last thing they had happen. I don't recall that, but yeah, that's yeah, I don't recall that. That sucks if that's true. If that's true, I assume that's true. I don't know why you would lie, Ed. Radek says the on-disc DLC controversy for Street Fighter X Tekken was peak 2012 gaming discourse. I do remember that, actually. I do remember that. All right. Where are we at? 7. Warner Brothers Discovery is reportedly planning to remove several games published by its Adult Swim Games label from digital stores like Steam and PlayStation Store. This decision, reminiscent of recent cuts in the film and television business, has left developers uncertain about the fate of their titles. Some developers, including Owen Reedy and Michael Molinari, have been notified that their games will be retired, in quotes, or removed from these platforms within the next 60 days. Molinari, creator of Sound Dodger Plus, expressed frustration over the decision, especially regarding the potential loss of community engagement and preservation of the game's history. Warner Brothers Discovery representatives cited logistical and resource constraints for not transferring ownership back to developers. Matt Lewandowski of Team 2-Bit, developer of Fist Puncher, also received a similar warning and hopes for the return of their game to the studio. I've got other stuff here written, but I'm just going to skip it. This sucks because for a few reasons. Obviously, any games disappearing sucks. The second thing is people have said they have talked to Adult Swim and Warner Brothers. I guess Adult Swim Games doesn't really exist anymore, but have talked to Warner Brothers, and they basically have like, yeah, you can have the rights to your game back, but we can't just transfer it to you because of logistical reasons. And in Steam, I don't know about on PlayStation and Nintendo and Xbox, it's a little more difficult, admittedly. But on Steam, at least, where a lot of these Adult Swim indie type games live, it's 3 buttons to transfer your ownership to another developer, another publisher. And so that sucks because you lose all your reviews, any wish list you may have hanging over, past sales, etc. You got to rebuild the entire page, submit it to Steam again, which, as we talked about last week, is not the hardest thing in the world, but it is a process. And then on top of that, in addition, I'm pretty sure that nobody who published a game with Adult Swim gave up their IP. So their game is being delisted, even though they own the IP, which is a good thing. It's good that Adult Swim let them keep their IP. They're not able to do what they want with it or keep it on the storefront or anything. It's just being removed from them. Now, Dave, this is different than the conversation we have a lot of times about physical versus digital. Most of these games never had a physical copy because they were small games. In fairness, I haven't played most of these Adult Swim games. But don't you think, even if your game came out and it only sold a couple thousand copies, it'd really suck for somebody else to decide you can't sell it right now?
It really does. Independent publishing, I think, is not a privilege that all game developers have available to them as an option. And there's a lot of games that wouldn't see the light of day without a big publisher coming in and taking care of marketing and distribution of your game. And I think sometimes these small developers just have to make a deal with the devil and hope it goes over well. And this is a case of that not happening. And you kind of sign your soul away when you have your game published by one of these big boys, because you're kind of at the mercy of whatever their business plans are. And in this case, there's games that literally won't be preserved because they aren't part of WB's long-term plans and they don't want to maintain it. And the logistical nightmare is too much for them. So it's really sad, and people pour their blood, sweat, and tears into these games. And when it's an indie game, that's even more so the case. And this could be 1 or 2 people who kind of thought up this game one day in their basement, and spent years and years after work, after a full-time job, kind of making this thing come to fruition. and then one day Adult Swim and WB just decides that it can't exist anymore. So that's really, really unfortunate. It's really, really sad. I hope in most cases that these can be transferred and they can be somehow preserved, but this isn't just a case of, well, why didn't you independently publish? Because that's not always possible. That's not always something that people can do. Not everybody has the upfront capital to do that sort of thing. So really sad to see, and I hope this is a lesson for a lot of small developers to kind of avoid this if they can. But again, not everybody, not all developers would have that opportunity. So yeah.
Yeah. Brandon, a lot of small indie devs, they go with a publisher because one, they need the help to get the game published. And a lot of the places have, like Xbox, PlayStation, whatever, they've made it much easier to go through that process yourself. It's still a nightmare, but it's much easier than it used to be. And then two, of course, there are people who need the funding to finish their game and get it out. Marketing, though, is one of the biggest things. If Adult Swim is putting out your game, it means a lot more than if Brandon and Ben are putting out a game.
Right.
So it kind of sucks to have a developer or a publisher not only be like, hey, we're shutting down, we're not going to do any more work for your game. And also, by the way, in a couple years, Warner Brothers is going to delete it.
Right. No, really, Warner Brothers at this point is almost anti-Capcom. If we're going with the theme of the show. But yeah, I don't know. I've been really critical myself of Warner Brothers over the years. They've made some very questionable decisions and continue to make questionable decisions, even in a post-Kill the Justice League world. They just keep losing. They just keep losing my good grace. And this is certainly no different. The least Warner Brothers could do is make it an easy transition for them to get the licensing back for whatever they need to kind of go at it on their own. Like you said, that's not really necessarily something that comes easy, but the least they could do is make it as painless as possible. And that's just not the case. And unfortunately, a lot of these Adult Swim games are very small games from what I've seen of what they have put out. So I don't know, man. Independent development is something that is just as risky as going through a publisher sometimes, but in a different way. But every single day that passes, every year that passes in the gaming industry, if you can make it independently, do everything you can, because whether it's a company shutting you down tomorrow or it is a company deciding they don't want their game on your front anymore, something bad's going to happen. So if you can swing it, make it happen. I'm not asking for something that's super easy to do, but this just kind of shows what kind of risk you take on whenever you are associated with these companies that, for lack of a better way of putting it, don't give a fuck about you at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had a lot of good, a lot of bad in the show. Now it's just the fun part where we talk about what we've been playing. I'm going to go first, which is not something I normally do, because I've got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to talk about, and I don't have a lot of extra stuff to say that I didn't say last week. But I'm still playing through. I'm about 35 hours in at this point. But I think I'm in chapter 7, which I think there's like 15-ish chapters, I want to say. I didn't look because I didn't even want to know the titles of them or where they are or anything, but I think I've seen that there's about 15 chapters. So I'm, 7th chapter doesn't mean anything for a story necessarily, but still really enjoying it. It's still beautiful, although I'm starting to notice some of the performance mode issues slip through a little bit more. I'm seeing a little bit more graininess in places than I would prefer, but that doesn't detract from my enjoyment of the game at all, because it's still running smoothly. It's running in 60, even in the most intense battles. It's absolutely awesome. The one thing I said last week is that there's a lot of open world area. And at that point, I was in like the first open world area. I'm in another open world area now, and there's a lot to do. And my thing is I'm not moving on to the next thing until I've done everything that I can in the last area. And it's really funny because I was talking about this with another friend recently, but I'm playing it that way and I'm enjoying playing it that way. But what I'm finding is that with the first game, Dave, you mentioned last week, didn't the first game have a lot of padding? And I think it did. A lot of people thought it did. And with this game, it has the padding, but you can skip it and move through it if you want to. What I'm finding, though, is that instead of thinking like, oh, I can't wait for this padding, like this, this bogus stuff to be over. I want to move on with the story. I'm thinking, man, I would really love to see how the progression, how the story is going to progress, what the next thing is. But this open world optional stuff is so much fun, and I'm enjoying the side missions so much that I don't want to move forward. And so, like, there's this tension in me. It's like, let's just go through the story. You can go back and do all that stuff later. And there's a tension with that, but I want to do it now because that's what I want to do. And ultimately, games are about playing them how you want to play and enjoying them in the way that makes you the most happy. But it's just a weird tension for me because I'm used to either not caring at all about side stuff or caring about it over the story or caring about story over. And in this, it's like all of it just meshes together so well for my particular desire what I want out of this game, that it's just making it even more special. But there's still that tension in my head of like, man, I wonder what Sephiroth's up to right now. Like, why I'm over here just like running errands with a really good story attached to it, but I'm just over here running errands while Sephiroth's out there doing who knows what. So anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm enjoying it a lot. I've still, occasionally been playing Deep Rock Galactic Survivor, Balatro, on my Steam Deck. I've still been playing those a little bit here and there, but not as much. It's been mostly as much time as I can get in, which hasn't been as much as I'd like, but as much time as I can get in, I've been playing Rebirth, and it's it for me, man. It's the game for right now, and I am enjoying it. I don't know that I'll go for the platinum, but I do want to complete as much as I can. I may not end up. There's like insane simulation boss battles that you have to do, and I might not try to complete all those because I don't care about the trophies. But if I get to the end and that's like the one thing I have left, then maybe I'll do it. But this is a 200-hour platinum game for me easily, and I don't know that I have that in me, honestly. So, Alex says, Sephiroth be like, I'm waiting, Cloud. Bitch, you're going to be waiting a while. That's true. Sephiroth is not getting anywhere near him anytime soon. Brandon.
Yeah.
What have you been playing?
Wow. Just, it's that time of the show. I've been playing.
Can we just to play the clip from last week?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we just copy paste my audio from last week? I've been playing Helldivers and Elden Ring. The only one thing I will say is that Elden Ring added mechs. Hold up.
Excuse me, what?
Hold up. Jesus Christ. Helldivers 2 added mechs, which we all knew was coming, and bless them, they capture something in this game that is so unique that I'm going to touch on that I've not touched on, is that MMO games shared something that Helldivers shares, which is a very large community aspect and the story being driven by the community. And so what was really cool is that when the mechs were about to release, they said, hey, look, this factory that's making the mechs, it's overrun. The community's got to come together, and these mechs aren't coming out until you guys liberate it. And lo and behold, democracy spread with the quickest of pace. And next thing you knew, the mechs were in the game, and they are completely overpowered. I don't know if they're overpowered. They're just fun.
They don't hold up very well to a friend in another mech shooting you. I can tell you that.
Sure. Yeah, and it's a lot of fun, man. And I'll go away with one story. I convinced my brother to buy the game. Okay.
Oh.
I put on Twitch. It wasn't even my intent to like persuade him, because I was telling him about it, right? But I was at his house, and so I just put on Twitch of it playing. The very next day, he bought it. So I wasn't trying to have it work out that way, but I'm super happy. He seems to really enjoy it. But Ben knows I like to, when friendly fire's on, sometimes I'd like to just test it. Yeah,
multiple times a match,
just to make sure that it's still on. And every time I do it, I have the handy dandy revolver, which is, it's slow because you have to reload it after 6 shots individually. There's no quick reloader. But if you pop someone, just a little pop. I hadn't realized, because I had never shot one of you in the head, that if you shoot them in the head, it's actually full health. So I just turned right around.
That's usually how it works in real life too.
I know.
Yeah.
But sacrifices were made that day. And I gotta say, it's a whole hell of a lot of fun, and it does not cease to be fun. This week, everyone, this week, if you're still playing Helldivers, there's an update that's coming out. We got new guns, we got new capes, we got new armor, there are new stratagems. So lots of cool things coming down the pipeline. This game continues to impress me, and the player base continues to be strong. So
Brandon, real quick, I want to comment on something you said. You were talking about how like they put out the call and democracy answered swiftly or something like that.
yeah, they did.
I saw something from one of the developers on Twitter, and they were like, "We expected people to not be able to complete this campaign in order to get the mechs
Right.
for 3 days, and it happened in less than a day." And not only that, like, you know, there were some server issues and there were queues and stuff. They
Sure.
more than doubled the size of their servers at one point recently. And even still, there were so many people trying to get in to play to get the base protected
Right.
that it overwhelmed the new expanded servers and also still completed the mission within a day, which is
Right.
insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, dude, it's honestly pretty crazy. And I'm going to give you some stats that are just something to think about. Last night when I was playing, there was around, I'm going to say conservatively because it was higher than this. There was around 400 people fighting on the bug side of the galaxy.
400?
400,000
400,000. Yeah.
people fighting on the bug side of the galaxy. There's the robot front and there's the bug front, right? As of 13 minutes ago, on PC only, I will give it this. Call of Duty had 67,000 people playing on computer. Just some numbers to think about. I'm just saying, for this magnitude of game, we cannot understate how, at this point in the game, we're still getting crazy numbers out of this game, and they continue to be open and honest and supportive. And I just, props to them, man. Who knows if it'll make it to the end of the year, but at this rate, they're doing really well. So,
Yeah. It's the community support that's really the information coming from them, the constant updates, the telegraphing of in-game things happening, you know, and making it a meta game as well as an actual game.
right.
They're doing it really well. They're absolutely doing it really well. Dave, what about you? You've been squashing any bugs?
No bugs. Sort of. But quick little story. Something amazing happened this week, fellas. I met a fellow Skull and Bones enthusiast in the wild.
Whoa.
Yeah.
There's dozens of us.
Can you spot them just by looking at them?
No, so since I've been buying games, like older games, I've been kind of making more of an effort to go into retro game stores when I'm out and about. So I was in one, and the owner and one of the employees were talking about Skull and Bones. So I had to jump in and be like, "You like Skull and Bones? I like Skull and Bones." It's like I've got like 100 hours in the game and stuff, and
God
it was
damn.
cool. It was cool. So
Good,
so
man.
yeah, he's
Good.
taking me out to dinner tomorrow night. So
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
it'll be good. Yeah.
Maybe he'll
Yeah.
get to see your skull and bone.
Yeah.
The last two in the entire world have to get together to mate, so there's more Skull and Bones
make
enjoyers. Yeah.
But,
Just let him sell you around before you give him the booty, Dave.
I have to put out the on that note, I have completed my penance for Skull and Bones. I've
Wow.
reached the top level of Kingpin in the game, and I've completed all the main story missions. I did some end game stuff, I did some PvP stuff. So yeah, I'm ready to kind of put a post-mortem on Skull and Bones. Thank God. Everybody doesn't have to listen to me talk about it. And I squeezed it in 1 month, so that means I don't have to re-up PlayStation Plus for another month.
Nice.
Bless you, Dave.
But as I've been saying, I'm enjoying the game, and I am gonna go back and do some end game stuff. So I'm gonna have to get PlayStation Plus again. But yeah, I mean the
You
game
can
is
just buy it on PC and start over.
yeah, no, I'm not doing that. The game is just so fun to play. The ship combat, just sailing around and getting into shit with NPCs and raiding forts and fighting other players and stuff. It's just the time kind of peels by. And there's stuff that's really bad about it. I talked about there's some presentation issues. I think the thing that annoyed me the most is like you have primary quest givers in the game. Like there's one in the starting area, and he's really mad about this French captain named Karadec. And then in the next area, there's this woman who's really mad about this Dutch captain named Van Kinkel or something like that. But all you get in terms of context is just them talking about it. The fucking quest givers in this game talk so much. And in some cases it's good. So, you know, sometimes I'll go to a certain smithy and I'll talk to them. Like I'll just interact with them. And then I go to a different quest giver and they'll talk to me about that conversation I had. So that kind of contextual stuff is good. But all you get in terms of story delivery in this game are just fucking quest givers talking to you. There's no cutscenes. This Karadec guy who's a main antagonist, this Van Kinkel guy who's the other main antagonist, I never see them. Like you see them when you fight them, but other than that, there's no context in the game. So, you know, the voice acting sucks. There's a lot of pop in. Some of the facial animation looks like it's from PS2. So I mean, those are my big annoyances, but the game is just so fun to play that I don't really care about that stuff. The end game is like an Age of Empires type conquest thing where you have to kind of capture different areas and control supply and demand. And you know, if an area you control kind of gets raided, you got to go back and retake that fort or defend it or whatever. And you're all kind of doing that to gain currency called pieces of 8 that you use for the black market, which is basically the end game store. So I think there's enough there to kind of keep people coming back, and there's seasons and stuff like that. So yeah, I really like Skull and Bones. It's not going to win any awards. It might die soon. I think at the very least it's going to be on Game Pass at some point, which I think is probably the best thing for this game. But I would like to see that because I think people need to play this game and realize that it is actually a lot of fun. So yeah, that's kind of my tying the knot on Skull and Bones. I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
Dave, what's the pricing like for their season passes?
I don't know. I'm not a season pass person.
I know you aren't, but I was just curious if you'd seen it.
Yeah, it's called the Smuggler's Pass or something, and it's just all like cosmetic stuff, and like you really need to. The game gets hard quickly if you kind of get into the wrong areas, and even in some of the right areas, there are these privateers that are floating about, and no matter how big or small their ships are, like they will destroy you in 2 hits. So like there is a constant drive to improve your ship and get better armor and get better weapons and diversify your weapons and stuff like that. So like there is a real draw for the end game stuff. I ended with my ship at level 8. The max level is level 11, and like going if I'm a level 8 ship, like going toe to toe with a level 9 ship is extremely difficult. Don't even try anything level 10. So like you actually really need to properly outfit your ship if you want it to be you know, decent in PvP. Yeah, so I did a PvP thing. It was just kind of like capture the flag. I went to this area and the first person there gets a treasure map, and you basically have to take it to a certain port, and in that time all these other players will come after you. It wasn't really fun because I just kind of outran everybody, but I could see it being a lot of fun with a lot of other players, and the loot was actually really good, so it was worth doing it. But yeah, so that's Skull and Bones.
Nice.
I jumped back into Metroid Prime to try and finish it, and I'm sick of listening to people whine about From Software games, because the final sort of area in Metroid Prime is really fucking hard. I have on 3 separate occasions lost an hour and a half worth of progress.
You're playing the original, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Original hardware,
yeah.
the original. Yeah. Because not because of carelessness or because I chose not to save, but because, you know, the first time when this happened, I was like, oh fuck, I died. Well, and then I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember the last time I saved. And then like I reloaded, and I was like so far from where I started, and that happened 3 times. And it's just a really tough area, really tough enemies, and you know, autosave wasn't a thing then. You actually had to find a save point and save your progress. And if you died at the end, then you're going right back to the beginning. So yeah, I kind of got through the really hard area, and I'm like fully upgraded now, and I kept coming across these things called artifacts, and I wasn't really collecting them. And I kept thinking, like, do I need to collect all those to finish the game? And it turns out I do. So
no.
I'm at the point now where I'm backtracking through the game, but what I'm realizing is that for a lot of these artifacts you actually need to be fully upgraded to get them, and it's kind of fun going back to some of the other areas of the map and just kind of like
Mowing 'em
ripping
over.
through everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, the only other thing I'll say about Metroid Prime is I love this game, and I'm actually considering playing the remaster on Switch right after I'm finished this, which is absurd, but I might do it just because I'm having so much fun. But there are many things that don't go well together, like milk and orange juice, affordable rent and single mothers. Brendan would argue that doesn't go well together.
Not if I have anything to do about it.
I will. No one can argue this, but first-person games and platforming do not fucking go together. If I can't see where my feet are, don't make me fucking jump from platform to platform. Platforming is not a big part of Metroid Prime, but it's enough where I am considerably annoyed at parts because I'm just missing jumps because I'm guessing where my feet are going to land. So,
Right.
Doom Eternal.
are you agreeing with me, or are you saying that's a good example?
That's my rebuttal is Doom
Your
Eternal.
rebuttal. Okay.
There's an exception to the rule, I suppose.
Okay. So, but generally speaking, first-person platforming is not a good thing. So,
yeah.
Other than that, I hope to be finished Metroid Prime in the next couple days, and but it's so much fun. I love this game. I really do.
Nice. Yeah. Man, I want to go back and play it. I mean, I played the original a long time ago, but I want to play the remaster. But when is the time?
Yeah. It might.
And also, I have to play it on my Switch
because based on the screenshots I've seen in some of the video, like they did a lot. It feels like it's more of a remake than it was a remaster. But I might play it and be like, how the fuck did I just play that?
Yeah.
So
it's you look at the new one without looking at the old one next to it. You look at the new one, you're like, yeah, I remember. That's how it looked. And then you look at the old one, and you're like, oh. It's kind of like when Diablo 2, when they came out with the I forget what they called it, but it was like the remake, and they made it so you could like hit a button and the old map, or the old graphics would show up. And I'm walking around like, what did they do to this game? I'm like, what did they even do to Diablo 2 that they needed to do it? And then I like switched back to the old graphics. I was like, oh yeah, that's what it looked. Yeah, so that's probably the same thing with Metroid, is that you play it, and if you've not played the other one recently, you're like, oh, it looks the same, but it doesn't. It doesn't. It looks so much better now. It still looks like a Switch game, but it looks good. And that's all we got for the show. Appreciate you guys hanging around. Appreciate everybody who's here live in chat every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Remember, there was a time change recently, and you Europeans and some other people as well, the time's a little different. So if you want to be here live, 7 p.m. Eastern, don't forget you can support us on patreon.com/handsomephantom for as little as $1 a month for ad-free early access to the audio, as well as just supporting your boys, the three most beautiful boys you know. Hang out with us on Discord, handsomephantom.com/Discord. We appreciate you being there. And other than that, we'll see you next time. All right, boys. I don't have any idea. I'm never good with titles, so that's no surprise.
Cock and ball torture.
Brandon's also not good with titles, apparently.
Fuck. I liked mine.
I mean, I bet you do. I bet you do.
Deviation Doomsday.
Ooh.
Dude, perfect.
Capcom Cuckold.
Oh, yeah, dude. Cock and ball torture. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you had to do it to him. Hey, thanks everybody for hanging out in chat. We appreciate it. Multi-Capcom. How did we go so long? That's what she said.
I've never heard that before.
We had 8 news stories. I'm sorry. No, we had 7, right? We only had 7.
I told you it was going to be a short show.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even pretend this time. I'm telling you guys, when I started writing the notes, I was like, there's nothing here. Like, what happened this week? And then I got to it, and I was like, well, this isn't that important, but like, we can't talk about that other thing without talking about this.
Will we ever get one as long as sacred? I fucking hope not.
Maybe if Sacred does a really short show and we do a really long one.
If we get bathroom breaks, I'd entertain the idea.
I'm not opposed to doing long shows if I feel that it's necessary. And hey, Colin feels that it's necessary for Sacred, and that's fine, and that's what the audience likes. I don't want to listen to that personally, but I understand why some people would.
I used to listen to 2 episodes of Sacred Symbol a commute. I used to have a long commute. It was an hour each way.
Yeah.
Now I think it takes me a week to listen to 1 episode.
Yeah.
5 hour Skull and Bones spoiler cast, Dave.
Dave, it sucks because I really do want to play Skull and Bones, but I'm not going to buy it right now.
It's okay. You don't have to.
I know I don't
You'll
have
enjoy
to.
it when you do.
Yeah, I know I'll enjoy it. I don't know if I'll play the whole thing, but it's like the kind of game that I want to jump into and play a little bit of. Just kind of like when every Assassin's Creed comes out. I'm like, yeah, I want to play that, but I don't want to play it for 120 hours. I don't know. How long do you think Skull and Bones was? Not 120 hours, I'm assuming.
I was seeing people say 20 hours. It took me 30.
Okay.
And I didn't do a lot of side stuff, so.
Well, that's because you're an old man.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot more to do.
Where's the inventory? Is Jimmy stored in this game? Oh, yeah.
Black Fag is weird.
All right.
We had a black fella in our time.
All right, everybody. We're going to end, upload, and get out of here. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.